Thanks for joining us on another For Investors, By Investors South Bay podcast. As always, we are proud to be your all-education real estate investment resource without any kind of sales pitch. If you would like to attend one of our meetings in person, we meet the second Wednesday of the month at The Point in El Segundo. You can RSVP at forinvestorsbyinvestors.com/South Bay. To find more investment resources such as blogs and podcasts from other FIBI groups, go to forinvestorsbyinvestors.com and search our library. Now, on to the podcast.
Okay, thank you guys very much for joining us. For those of you guys who have heard this a million times, I'm sorry. For those of you guys who haven't, Dave and I started this group, 2012 now? And FIBI was actually started in 2008 by a couple of investors who were tired of getting the sales pitch every time, didn't want to go to a place where they get upsold the boot camp, the book and tape set, and things like that, a place where they could go and actually, get educated, learn, and really develop the resources you need to do this business, because none of us can do this by ourselves. So Dave and I started this one. I run the Long Beach one, and we have about 5 total chapters throughout Southern California right now, about 22,000 members now, and we've been doing this for so long that we've developed all the relationships we need for our business, which is great, and hopefully we're able to help all of you guys. And so we'll do different topics. Like last month we did it on medical marijuana and real estate because of the new laws. This month is on short-term rentals. Next month is going to be on technology as it relates to real estate, which is going to be really interesting to see some of the things people are doing. And if you don't know about technology, and you really need to get involved because you're going to be left in the dust as things happen. So staying on top of your game is going to be the most important thing you can do. And so this discussion is more of like a panel discussion. In the Long Beach one, we do more of like a Q&A. In the Pasadena one, they do more of a presentation type format. So each one is a little bit different. And at any of our clubs, you won't get sold any of the boot camps or book and tape sets or any of that type of upsell at our clubs. Not that it's not valuable sometimes, but at the same time, we try to leave that out here so that you guys can really not feel like you're going to get pitched. But that being said, Dave, you want to talk a little bit about, you got your provisors thing on here, right? So.
My FIBI badge is in the car. I don't walk downstairs. Thank you. How you guys doing tonight? Good. So Airbnb, everyone shows up for short-term rentals, right?
Not Airbnb, short-term rentals. You're going to get so much help from this audience. Saying Airbnb instead of short-term rentals. It's a pet peeve of like 4 people in this room.
All right, so for you 4, I'm going to use Airbnb all night long. Nobody tells me what I can say. You can't censor me. No, seriously, thank you guys for coming. This is a topic that clearly it's one that's topical. Certainly, if you look in the news, there's so much happening on short-term rentals in local communities at a national level, even on a federal level. So we're really excited about it. For those of you that are first-time FIBI members, raise your hand if this is your first FIBI meeting. All right, welcome. Thank you for coming. We have a really broad set of experience up here from the panel. Generally, what we do within our FIBI meetings is we try to find people that are active in the space on a regular day-to-day basis, not necessarily people that are on the circuit trying to pitch you a bunch of material. So tonight we've got a panel that's very, very active in this space, and we've got a series of questions that we've tried to frame, the conversation as best we can, but we encourage participation. So if you have a question, raise your hand. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. If there's something that we're going to cover later on, we just may ask you to hold that question until later in the panel. And if you have a very specific question about your situation, it's a great question to take to the bar after the meeting and talk to whoever you want to ask that question to. We're going to go to about 9 o'clock, maybe a couple minutes over. And at 9 o'clock, we need to clear everyone out. But we've got food waiting at North Italia, which is right across the courtyard here. So we rented the whole patio bar at North Italia. We've got some food. It's a cash bar. These guys are all going to come by. Matt and I will come by. And that's really where the magic of FIBI happens. We're all about education, but we're also all about networking. Matt clearly said he has every resource he needs for his business. Congratulations, Matt.
Not enough.
Not enough?
Enough right now.
Enough, okay, enough.
Get more, so.
You never know. Maybe you're that missing piece into Matt's world that he doesn't even know he needs yet. But clearly you're resources to each other. So, for example, we always like to do this. Who here has a project and is looking for capital? Raise your hand. Okay. Who here has capital and you're looking for a project? Okay, so there you go, right there. You know, those of you that raised your hands, those are the people that you should target first when we get over to North Italian. As Matt mentioned, we're doing, our next panel is in March. It's March the 14th. And it is going to be on the technology and real estate, which I kind of have the feeling is going to be an extension of tonight. I think a lot we're going to talk about tonight is technology and running this business. So ad nauseum, exactly right. But we'll talk more about property management as a whole. We'll talk about other kinds of real estate systems. There's all kinds of technology out there surrounding the real estate business, and that's more we're going to focus on next month. As you guys you probably have gathered, we're not making a lot of money off of FIBI, as indicated by the $20 you paid to get here. That's not why Matt and I do this. We do it more for building this community, for meeting people that we want to meet, and to help cover the costs. We do have some sponsors. So Walker Dunlop is one of our sponsors. They're a national funder for commercial real estate. So if you're looking for commercial loans, we can connect you to those guys. UDirect IRA does a lot of self-directed IRAs. So if you're looking for to invest using your IRA, which is absolutely something you can do in short-term rentals, we have good connections there. New Western, actually I saw someone here from New Western. Yeah, there we go. So these guys are wholesaler extraordinaires. So if you're looking for wholesale properties, talk to these guys right over here. Spiro Woodward is one of our sponsors, and actually Michelle here is an attorney at Spiro Woodward. So if you guys are looking for real estate or business advice here in the South Bay, a really large firm, been around for a long time. And the Note Assistance Program, is anyone here from the Note Assistance Program? Okay. So those guys deal with the debt side of real estate, the paper side of real estate. So if you're looking for those kinds of resources, let us know. We'll connect you to them. They're all really good people. The last thing we'll do before we get into our introductions is just to remind you that we are not attorneys, right? Matt is the CPA, but he's not here to give you financial advice. This is meant to be
I am an attorney, but not for the purposes of the CPA. Turning my legal card off right now.
So she's a real attorney. Matt's a fake CPA. So if you've got specific questions about the legal nature of your situation, the financial, your financial situation, again, if you don't have someone in your world that fulfills that role, let us know. We'll connect you to the right people. All right. So with that, let's start off with doing some 2 to 3 minute introduction. Jay, if you can get that microphone on. Yeah, just hit the button there. Hold it down. You're on.
Oh, awesome. Cool. How you guys doing? Good? Excellent. I'm Jay Massey. I have a podcast on iTunes, Cash Flow Diary. Anyone heard of it? Listen, at least once? Excellent. That's good. Glad to hear it. I'm a cash flow real estate investor. That's what I like. That means I'm asset agnostic. I've done cell phone towers because they produce cash flow, commercial buildings because they produce cash flow, apartment buildings, single-family houses, notes, and most currently short-term rentals because they produce a whole lot of cash flow. And I think at this point we have served a little over 1,400 reservations. We do about 100 reservations a month. That's getting close to 4,000 people. Done this. There's something going on all the time. I mean, millions of dollars have been earned. I have a lot of experience working with a lot of different people from different countries. We've taught people now across the globe. So I've got some of the international experience. Some of our notable places where we've done or helped people are Ireland, South America, Canada, as well as Russia. So it's this idea is here to stay, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I'm just excited to answer whatever questions you got, throw it at me. I've probably heard it twice already. But for the unique question, there will be a prize. You got to ask the unique question that I've never been asked before. Well, I promise I'll let you know when it comes. But if it doesn't come tonight, then Matt gets the prize, and he doesn't need any more resources. So we're good. Have I, a unique question related to short-term rentals?
Actually, you're supposed to take the fifth on that question.
Yeah. Good point.
Right. The question was, have you talked to Putin? Which clearly we don't want to answer that question. Michelle.
Hi everybody, I'm Michelle DeMason. I am a litigation attorney at Spear Woodward. We are a real estate firm. We handle anything that you can think of that concerns real estate. My firm has seen it and handled it. I specifically do real estate litigation, so people come to see me when something goes awry, which happens more often than anybody would like. I typically represent property owners or potential property owners.
Thank you. Mark? Nicole?
Hi guys. I am Mark McMahon, and this is my wife Yuko. She's going to talk a little bit tonight, but she's got a little bit of a frog in her throat, so whenever I say anything wrong, she'll grab the mic and correct me. So, we live in Orange County. We've been investing for about 10 years now. We started off, Michelle, we flipped a mobile home 10 years ago and made a little bit of money and got the bug, and so now we flip. We own rental properties, and we have 7 vacation rentals in Hawaii that we own, and anywhere from $400,000 to $2 million. So kind of a variety of units over there. So if you guys want to go to Hawaii, come talk to me. Is that allowed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Please come talk to me. No. So Yuko handles most of the bookings. I've always handled the construction end of it. So that's kind of our expertise between the two of us. So anyway, do you want to say anything?
Of course I do. No. So we a team, husband and wife team, that we've been doing this for 10 years. And I also I originally from Japan, and that I thought was a great idea to introduce U.S. real estate in Japan. So I go there, do seminars, and I released a couple of books about U.S. real estate investment. So that's what we do. And we raise money, and we do our real estate thing. So that's it.
Funny story about Mark and Yuko and I. We did a presentation in Japan together. It was really mostly Yuko. I tried to do about a 10-minute piece of that as Yuko translated every sentence. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, stopping every sentence to say something. Could not keep my train of thought. It was very difficult. It was awesome to go out there and have her show me all around Japan, and Mark and Yuko were absolutely amazing. So. Give you guys a little background on myself. I'm a CPA, a licensed and full CPA, I basically I flip houses. I've been flipping for 10 years. We flip about 10 houses a month, or 5 to 10 depending on the month, and we do a lot of value-add multifamilies. We raise a lot of capital and do a lot of private lending to other flippers. We also have a couple of short-term rentals, and we run FIBI. So, and we do some value-add multis and things like that. So it's a lot of fun, better than doing taxes. So I will help you with your overall situation, but I will never do your taxes. So I do not want to help the government steal your money. But anyways, sorry, Mark, I wasn't supposed to be talking about my political views, right? So he specifically told me not to, so I had to say it, of course. So it's the rebellious part. But anyways.
Well, I'm curious that finally someone figured out how to make Matt talk a sentence at a time. That's the perfect part of this seminar. So my name is David Coe. I'm a realtor here in the South Bay. This is our office, Keller Williams Beach Cities. As a realtor, this is kind of our primary area. It's dealing in the South Bay cities. We do deal with a lot of distressed properties, so divorce, probate, properties that have title issues and legal issues is kind of where we come from. As an investor, I've done everything from high-end fixing and flipping to we do a lot of the debt side of real estate, and currently involved in some small lot subdivision development out in the valley. So that's my background as both a broker and an investor. So that's all of our backgrounds. We tell you that just so you have a sense of where we're coming from as we start the panel. Let's kind of jump into it. And Jay, the first question we have is just more about, like, from a high-level perspective on the business that you have, like, what's the general business structure of a short-term rental business? And do you have each of them a separate entity or one entity? Kind of talk about how you're structured.
Got it. Well, first you have to, again, I've always taught and I've said that if you're going to build a business, you have to start with 5 questions in any order: why, what, when, who, and how. And if you answer those questions, it's going to determine a lot of things. First and foremost, for example, what is the purpose behind you even going into the short-term rental game? For myself, understand I've been a landlord for a significant period of time, had hundreds of units out mostly in Memphis, in Illinois, in Georgia, cell phone towers in Colorado, all this other stuff. But my kids, I have 4 of them, the smallest is 7, and they never got to see what Daddy did. And I was looking for a way to have C-class cash flow, but A-class real estate. And it wasn't possible, like out here, right? So how do I do that? And for me, it's a transitionary move so that I can eventually, the goal is to eventually do 2 things: own a hotel and buy a sports franchise. That's the 2 goals. But before we get there, what we do is we take down short-term rentals. Now, I learned you can do it one of 2 ways. You can own the property, so that's good. Ultimately, that's the best way to build wealth, and that was awesome. And that was what I learned when I had about 450 units. It's like, cool, you can build wealth really well, but it doesn't build income really well. And that was my frustration. It was either deferred maintenance or take cash flow. And I didn't like the idea of having to choose to have a less than quality product that people were paying for so that I could have cash flow. So what that meant is that you had to find another source of income, which I didn't really want to do because I'm lazy. That's just what it is. So I was looking for a way to make more cash without giving up the benefits of real estate. And that turns out that, yeah, you could own the property, but the challenge is that how much cash it takes up front to down payment, rehab, etc. And these are things that, yes, you could do, but I didn't want to be, I feel like you could be more efficient if you just need control, because that's what you ultimately need. So I've developed a business whereby taking control of the real estate is the key thing. Negotiating with the landlord or landlords or group or whoever up front, letting them know, hey, this is what we're doing, here's why, here's how it's going to work, here are our safety and security procedures, here are our maintenance procedures, all that stuff that you guys think landlords won't let you do and talk about. And we get that documented and then we move forward. But under a lease structure, it's been the most profitable way that I have found for people to get started. Now, understand, I'm doing that with one goal in mind. Own enough short-term rentals to produce net free cash flow, now I'm speaking accounting terms, net free cash flow on a monthly basis to have a down payment for a multiple unit building here in LA or Orange County. So that every month I have enough money to go buy a new 5, 10, 15, or 20 unit building. And if you develop the right systems, you can run enough of these short-term rentals to do so. That's for me. Other people have used this same strategy just to get out of their job really fast. Like, it's been insane that fast. Other people have used it to do what these 2 are doing in terms of just buying property and building wealth, because it's a great way to take that really nice trophy house and actually make that sucker make money while you pay off that mortgage. And so you've got to think about why you would want to do it. Just understand the economics are the same, and you're going to end up in a situation where you have a significant amount of cash that you have to deal with on a monthly basis. You have to have really great cash management skills, because there's a lot of cash that comes your way when you're dealing with something like this.
So the ones that you're leasing then, are you leasing them in your name, an entity's name? How do you structure that?
She had, I'm sure she had a conniption with that.
Actually, she just wrote your name down.
And she was like, no. Yeah, I could let her answer that. No. And it's not for the reasons you think. It's mostly because when you're housing a human, okay, humans are unpredictable, yes. If you've ever housed them, you know. And there's a whole lot of liability coming your way from a foreign individual. So we do a lot of business. Our Orange County units are almost always full, well, especially this time of year with Chinese New Year coming. We have a ton of customers from the area. And soon it'll be the UAE. They'll coming for the Persian New Year, because that'll be great. All of these things that happen outside of the U.S. actually affect the business. So it's really, really cool. But that's a great unknown. They have different customs, they have a different way of doing things. Apparently, there's a special way that washers and dryers work in Asia? Because that's the number one question we get from our Asian customers is how to use the washer and dryer. I've got to figure this out. But that's liability, because if they misuse the washer and dryer, there can be an issue. So all of them are done in an entity. That is table stakes. You cannot do. I would never recommend to not have an entity on these.
So Michelle, talk about.
I'm not an attorney. She is.
She is. So talk about some of the options you have from an entity standpoint that might make sense for this kind of business.
There we go. So generally speaking, an LLC is going to be the easiest and most flexible corporate sort of form that you can hold a piece of property in. You're not required to do a whole lot. I think you pay $800 to the franchise tax board for the LLC name. And there's a lot of corporate formalities that you actually don't have to follow as an LLC. You have to follow some, but it's not as onerous as some of the other different types of entities, which are a general, I would recommend a general partnership. You could do a corporation, which might be an option if you start to hold a lot of different properties. One option, if you're going to have more than one property, you can take each property in a different LLC name. The more assets that you have under one corporate entity, it just creates a pool of wealth for somebody to come after if you do incur liability at one of your properties. So that's something to keep in mind. There might be a reason to own multiple properties under one LLC name, depending on your individual circumstances, but generally speaking, for starting out in the business, I would say one LLC per property, and keep your, for some of the older clients in the room, keep your estates, your trust and estates, and an attorney in the loop when you're adding new assets and creating new entities.
But,
I'm sorry. There's a very much LLC as a partner. Well, I heard that complicates. It can be managed, but it complicates it a little bit. But
you want to split up. Right?
Yes.
So was it advisable to use the LLC?
So the question is, trying to do a 1031 exchange with owning an LLC or a partnership can complicate things, and absolutely it can, but there's ways to disperse the properties out and do a 1031 exchange separately if you want to, or if one person wants to do it and the other person doesn't. You can actually accomplish that. There's strategies to do that, and actually IRS guidance on it. So.
It's not that rare. I mean, it happens fairly frequently.
But there's a distinction that I want to draw, because there's a difference between owning the property and then operating the short-term rental. So I guess my question would be then, owning the property in LLC, I understand, but operating as the short-term rental operator, are you saying that would also be an LLC or a separate LLC, or would you recommend a different?
I think it depends on, it always depends. If you have one property that's one short-term rental, I would likely operate everything under the LLC. If we get into your situation where you have hundreds and hundreds, it absolutely makes sense to have sort of the business side as one corporate entity and then the ownership of the property under a different entity.
And I think when you're talking about structuring LLCs and entity structuring for liability protection and things like that, you have to understand where it's very subjective, right? It depends on your own net worth, it depends on your insurance policy involved and what exclusions are there and how many units you have and the cost-benefit analysis of the additional layer of protection versus by having multiple short-term rentals in one entity versus having to do multiple entities where it can cost you a lot of money. So you may have great insurance in place to where you don't feel your risk is too much by having multiple in one entity, but by no means am I saying to go own 50 of them in the same entity, but at the same time, because they can go after each other if there's a problem. Anything that happens inside that entity, they can go after the other one. So that's the risk you're taking, but you also have insurance in place, for your umbrella policy as well. So there's those types of things that you can look at when you're, entity structure. Question here.
For your situation where you're negotiating a lease and then more or less your FIBI strategy is subleasing. Short-term rental. Is this
One time. Go ahead.
But for that situation, since there's no actual asset ownership, that's all You're signing those leases with the same as no assets. Well, I guess outside of the corporate asset itself, which operational cash flow.
Oh, you don't
Physical asset? No. I don't need to. I meant you're not holding title to anything.
Furniture.
He's not going to let you get away with this one.
I go. Got it.
Just so we can have some.
No problem. Go for it.
So you're signing all these leases with the same entity.
Yes. That was it.
That was
Got it. Yes. The answer is yes, because it's one operational company. Because it's the same way that you would. It's the same way that I would attack if I owned a gas station and a convenience store. On the same. I would own the land separately and have the gas station operate as a completely separate entity. It's the exact same idea, just deployed inside a residential situation.
And then to kind of connect the two concepts, if you did own 3 assets, each in a separate LLC, you then have a different corporate entity that's kind of the left-hand leasing from the right hand to route that operation business.
Got it. Yes, that's very similar to what I would do because I would actually have the same operational entity in all three properties. There would be no reason to create 3 of those, and then that one entity would owe rent to the LLC. Yes, correct. Separate. Absolutely.
Mark, you guys have a little bit different of a structure, which is really interesting. From what Jay was saying, as far as developing long-term wealth on these things, and buying the properties and these nice properties. That I get to see all these great pictures of you guys going to Hawaii all the time. It's totally not fair, but that's why I want short-term rental in every country now. So how are you guys structured? From the capital raise perspective, from the entity structuring, and also what does it look like on a day-to-day basis when you're dealing with the operations of something like this? From a different market like this, especially.
Well, first off, for safety reasons, we have everything in our own name. I'm really scared to death to say anything right now. Jerry's going to jump down my throat and say, Jay, just don't listen, okay? Don't say anything.
I will not listen.
No, we have everything in an LLC. Hawaii's laws are a little bit different. They're different and they're the same. It's very easy to open up LLCs, multiple LLCs over there because it's free. But we still have to pay California, bastards. But she's going to jump in a minute here with a little bit more detail. So we hold it in an LLC. And what was the other question? Operational?
So the operational aspect, and then how do you guys? You're buying the properties, you're raising capital for these things. How are you guys raising capital, and how is the deal structured from that
We're
perspective?
raising capital quite well. We raise capital and typically purchase properties that need a lot of work, and we will actually go over there. I'll take actually one of my crew members over there and actually we'll do it ourselves. We're a little bit more hands-on than most people, I think. I have a hard time letting loose of things. So we'll go over and do a project that the first one, do you mind if I tell that story? Yeah, the first one we did over there, we actually hired a contractor. And it took 2 months to do something and it cost us around $50,000 to remodel a condo. And yeah, so the next time it happened, the next time it happened, I didn't take anybody with me. I just did it myself in about 9 days. And so after that, we kind of got used to doing it ourselves, and so that's kind of how we did it. So operationally speaking, we did all of our, and probably not the best use of my time, but you know how I am. And Yuko raises capital. That's really her main job. Yuko raises all the capital in the company. I typically find the properties and I handle the construction on it. Whether it's something we're flipping, or it's an apartment complex that we own, or a house we own, or in the case of vacation rentals. But Yuko is the queen of raising capital, and she raises all of it. It's all foreign capital. So yes.
Are you raising capital to furnish and set up as well as purchase, or is it capital just for purchase? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah, because the expense to furnish it isn't. It's, even in Hawaii, I think we get away with about 10 or 11 grand. So it's not a major, I mean, it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's not anything I want to pay interest on. So we usually have that money in our account to do that kind of stuff with. But yes, it's usually, we usually borrow 100% of money. So.
And you're basically, from that perspective, you're getting discounted properties because you're adding value to them as well. So you have some built-in equity, or equity protection on some of these things when you're dealing with raising additional capital to cover some of those expenses.
Actually, just a little tip. The best way we found to find properties over there, it's weird. We've bought 3, not abandoned properties, but properties that have been sitting empty for years, where people bought them years ago and aren't using them, or the owner died and the kids don't know what to do with it. I mean, it's the same thing here, but what was that one? The 2-bedroom had been sitting for 9 years, 7 years. And then the other one we bought from a Japanese corporation that bought it as a vacation place for their employees. And I swear, the first time I went in there, I touched the couch and it just disintegrated. It had been sitting there so long. Everything was in great shape until you touched it. So those are the kind of properties to look for in Hawaii, FYI. I probably shouldn't have said that.
I had a question.
Yeah.
You fix the house, you refinance to pay off the one that you borrow?
No. We're weird. Go ahead. No, we don't.
And real quick, just because everyone can hear the question. So the question was, is once you fix it up, do you pay off the money that you borrow to buy it on the Airbnb side?
For short term.
How do you structure the capital on these things?
So we raise the money for purchase, which is pretty lower than market value. And because Mark is a licensed contractor, so he does the rehab, so which is pretty minimum cost. It's about 600 square foot condo. We do probably within the 10,000, everything, a kitchen to bathroom to floor to everything by himself. So for us, it wasn't cost a lot to do. So we just tack onto it. We raise the money with rehab cost and construction cost all at once. Then we still carry it. Yeah.
And then how do you pay your investors, like an interest rate, or is it amortized, or is it interest-only type deals, and do you just raise it from your private clients in Japan?
Yes, we raise it. Our money right now for those are 5%. So it's pretty good deal when you think about it. And
remember, Japan's interest rate is like what, 1% right now?
So they're getting 5% from us. It's like it's a bonus for them. So we do interest only, and then later on we bank financing or refinancing.
Just hearing that rate makes me excited. I don't know why. It's just 5%. That's just great. Question in the back.
For your Japanese investor clients, do they have to then pay U.S. taxes on their returns?
There's 2 different ways. Japanese client who lives in Japan, they're gonna have to submit a BN form for IRS, so that it's up to them to claim that income. So it's very gray. So, but then who lives here, or sometimes they live here for a while, went back to Japan, they have social security number or tax ID number, we 1099 them. Then they're gonna have to file it, or I don't know what they're doing after that. But we encourage them to talk to their CPA.
Yeah, they typically, if they're not a U.S., if they don't have a U.S. tax ID number, they typically need to apply for one and then fill out what's called that 8Ben form she was talking about. And then that's basically telling her, I plan on filing my taxes, therefore you don't have to withhold any of the income for, and now they plan on doing their taxes. If she does have to withhold, then it's usually 39% of the withholding. And so it's really beneficial for them to get U.S. tax ID numbers and file that 8Ben form. So that, and her as an operator, you don't want to go withhold all this money from people. That's a big liability and a big scary thing. So, but it's interesting. So, question.
I can't highlight, I'm not sure if you covered this. I have a property in
HOAs generally, they don't like short-term rentals across the board. HOAs can be persnickety entities to deal with, especially if you get somebody on the board who has a lot of spare time on their hands, which is most presidents of HOAs, right? And if it's in the CC&Rs that short-term rentals are not allowed, there's not a whole lot you can do other than try to lobby your neighbors to change the CC&Rs and try to get yourself on the board.
I'm talking about CC&R years old. A lot of my people that own this are like 80, 90, they're original kind of old apartment. So I don't know if that clause is in there, but now they're trying to make a move, a push to change our CC&Rs and add specifically Airbnb or I don't know what kind of question.
This is one of the fun parts of owning a condo with an HOA. It happens, and I would encourage you as a property owner to educate your neighbors about the benefits of short-term rentals to try to combat that push to ban them. Once they're banned, there's not a whole lot you can do other than, again, try to take over the board and get them to reconsider the issue. Because typically, once they amend the CC&Rs, they're going to add penalties to them, right? They're going to add financial penalties to it.
That's the fault that we are.
It depends on the CC&Rs. Typically, it's a full houseboat.
What are the benefits?
Of having of allowing short-term rentals in an HOA.
This is why Jay's like this, because he's like, I got all the benefits, I know what to say. He's been dealing with this.
I don't want to pitch you, but I promise you this: when I'm done, you'll want it. Now, to you, I want to address something. Yes, you'll want it, but I want to address his concern first, because here's the thing: the majority of the CC&Rs that I've looked at, they typically, all right. First of all, if they can rent a condo, like as in a traditional long-term renter, okay, there's ways to work with them. Because most people, and many people probably in this room, make an assumption that if I said to you, you can't do a rental less than 30 days, you therefore cannot acquire tenants or short-term, you can't do this for short-term rental, and that's absolutely false. You have no idea how many customers we get who are in the middle of transition, whether it be from company to company or country to country, that CEOs who transfer into the area need 4 or 5 months to stay. In fact, starting in June, I'm going to start to get requests again, because a lot of families are going to be transferring to the area, and before they come to pick their school district, they're going to hang out at one of our units for 3 months to make sure that they pick the right area. A lot of the CC&Rs want to restrict. When they go for this restriction, don't just take the word ban or can't do or restriction or ordinance and go, I can't do it. Read it. Because the majority of the time it says has to be rented for greater than 30 days. I'm like, cool. That's all I needed to know. Because now what I do is I mark it for the 30-day or greater renter. Okay.
But why are they doing that? Because there has to be a ratio between
that's why I asked it. That's why I was asking if they allow traditional renters or not, because that's where the sticking point is. The sticking point is where they act in that ratio. That I can't help you with.
There are
nothing I can do with.
There are some HOAs that don't allow any rental units at all.
Right.
In which case, that's not going to be a unit that you want to target for your business.
But if it's just day specific, that's not.
Most of them will allow you to rent 30 days or more.
And if they got that, you're good. You just got to know what you're doing when you go to the marketplaces, and so that everyone knows. The reason I'm so anti calling them Airbnbs is because Airbnb is just a marketplace. You don't say, hey, I have an Amazon business. No, you happen to sell your product on Amazon. Airbnb is one of many marketplaces. There are approximately 30 plus of them. You just haven't heard them all. They're just the biggest one you know about. Where you acquire, they're a customer acquisition channel. That's it. And when people begin to understand that, that's something completely different. Now, what's your name? Marco Polo. Sorry. You knew that was coming, but it'll help me. Never once. But Marco, why do you not want a short-term rental in there. What is it? What is your concern?
Concern over the clientele that they're not filling it out. Concern that they don't have care for the
Who doesn't have care?
owner of the renter.
Who doesn't have care?
The renter.
The renter coming doesn't have care. Okay, let me ask you this question. If I take responsibility for that renter and I present to you a $2 million insurance policy, are you okay with that because you're going to hold me responsible? Let's start there.
No, because I have kids.
Totally understood. What is your concern with kids?
Don't know who's going to be.
Okay, and if I can present to you... Got it. And if I can present to you a screening system that is more sophisticated than what your long-term renter tenants are currently using, which will tell me not only are they sex offender, drugs, and all this other stuff, is that going to help you at all?
No, because it doesn't increase the value of my unit or maybe.
You are correct. That's a financing issue with the banks. I wish they would give us credit for the income, but let me ask you the question differently. I was asking about that, well, the reason it doesn't increase the value is because I can't go to a lender and say, hey, I've been running this as a short-term rental, will you please value this differently? Because if it did, you would, bingo, if it did, you would love me. So, but I can't do anything about that one, but what I'm talking about is security, because what you're saying is, do you allow renters at all in your long-term renters at all in your HOA? Okay, so what level of screening did you verify that person who owns the condo do? Did you verify it?
No, that's a good point.
But that's also my point.
I'd like to. We actually had a homeowner recently.
Yep.
And tell her that she did against that. It was good to have the jurisdiction of that.
Yeah, and how long does it take to get a tenant out?
6 months.
2 months away, 6 days. Which would you prefer?
I prefer to.
Even if it takes...
I mean, for me, it's
Okay, I'm not done, but go ahead.
I'm also the president of my HOA.
This is awesome! I know, they were all here!
I didn't know we were going to have an HOA meeting.
Did you have a lot of free time? I was just curious.
But what we didn't say, what I'll say is that in general, HOAs, we don't like renters either. We don't have homeowners.
I get that.
So a renter, like a condos, townhouses, townhouse.
Yes.
So in general, for an investor who buy a townhouse,
Yep.
rents out,
Yep.
the cash flow sucks. It's in Southern California.
Yeah.
The cash flow sucks.
Yeah, of course.
So what short-term rentals provide is the ability to get more, I'll say, transient people. Because otherwise it is 100 unit complex. There's three renters. There's only 3 investors that are dumb enough to buy investment properties in this complex. But if Airbnb or short-term rentals are filling your plan,
Understood.
if any of those are allowed, then all of a sudden they can start getting a whole bunch more because now they actually economically make sense. Tell them I can buy one of these complex.
Correct. You're right. So what you're really saying is that it's an operator issue. For example, have you ever been to a restaurant chain and had one location that was really good, but the other one was like horrible?
Yeah.
Does that mean all of them are horrible?
No. I'm just telling you, so I just want to kind of put it out there. I know you've thought through all this.
Yeah, well, I deal with it every day because the students and myself, we have to deal with it. And what it comes down to, what you're talking about is an operator screener issue. You're not holding the long-term, the person who owns the property, who's putting tenants in there, you're not holding them to tighter scrutiny. You don't ask them where they get their clients from. They could have come from Craigslist. You think that's better? I mean, maybe not. And that's my point is I want you to hold everybody to the same standard. Don't just single us out because, hey, we choose to use this marketplace to acquire a tenant.
So I have someone that we have that as well. And I live.
Vice President, no, just kidding.
No. My question is, what can an operator do in real time?
Yeah.
So not just, okay, yeah, we're screening this person and they look legit, they came in, but now there's a party and my community is up in arms. What an operator can do in real time to secure the property, secure the neighbor's security, and that long term, you can't do it long term.
So the good question is, what can a short-term rental operator do in real time that is going to going to be able to secure that unit and in doing more than a short-term rental owner can possibly do, or than a long-term rental owner can do.
Got it. And I love this, and you're going to like this too, I think. Maybe. We'll see. First of all, understand that when my guest comes, I'm granting them a license, not a lease. There's a really big difference between the two, right? A license, not a lease. Because I can cancel a license. Getting rid of a lease is harder in California. Make sense? So that's the first thing. Second, from a technology perspective, this is where we're going to go. I know, like right now, I can pull up on my phone or any mobile device the amount of noise that is being generated in any unit. I know how many times my door has been unlocked, whether they unlocked it with their phone, whether they unlocked it with the keypad. And that keypad or the phone or the unlocking mechanism is tied to their phone number and only that phone number. Second, yes, there are cameras that are external, not internal. So not only do I know, hey, they unlocked the door, I see them unlock the door, and I can count the number of people going in and out of the door at all hours. Next, I have staff that can help me monitor this, and at any time the noise decibel goes over a threshold that I decide is too high, we can and have utilize police services to remove people if we need to. And again, this is all done within hours. And don't tell me that those long-term tenants don't have parties too, and that you have to still deal with them. I promise you that they do. The difference is you can't get rid of them in hours, and you have to live with them for as long as that lease shall live. And we can get rid of them. We know exactly who's in there. We know why they came. There's so many levels of security that we have, rephrase, that a quality operator will have in place. That's where the issue lies. The issue lies is that the barrier to entry to what I'm doing and what we're talking about is so low. You're right, anyone can do it. But if you put the right qualifications for your operators in place, I'm going to take better care of your property. You're going to have better. In fact, we've done this with many apartment owners where they see the quality of tenant that we attract and then they take them on full time because they were moving to the area, they liked the experience we gave them, and they met all of the long-term tenant qualifications as well.
And as a short-term rental owner as well, no short-term rental owner actually is incentivized to have parties, right? I mean, it's just the incentive piece, of course. Now, there's always going to be bad operators as well because of the low entrance point. And so that is an issue that needs to be accomplished probably within the CC&Rs in the HOA if you were to actually allow it and things like that. At the same time, like from an outside perspective, just on the single family homes, for example, you keep your yard and your property better than any of your neighbors because it has to be for marketing purposes. So you're actually going through and increasing the value. And I actually recently have been doing statistical analysis because I'm having to deal with it on the actual noise complaints and violations from short-term rentals specifically versus long-term rentals and homeowners. And there's not really very much correlation at all between the two. But the negative press is that, oh, there's parties, there's more traffic, there's trash. That's what you hear about. And there's actually people that are blogging about this, and it's like an offensive measure that you see in many cities because they say, I don't want my neighborhood to be a hotel. Now that's another big problem, and we'll get into the city stuff in a second, but these are the things that are out there. And so if you look at if I'm a rental owner specifically, and I'm an owner, it would be the best thing in the world to have a short-term rental owner that knows what they're doing, because if you look at the way they operate, like every time there's turnover, we're inspecting for damage to make sure that we can charge them for it and we're fixing it immediately. Not a single long-term rental owner does that, and so those types of things really are a huge benefit, but you have to get through that's a real scary thing. When you have kids and you're like, I don't know these people, it's understanding the process that it goes through in order to have those clients and things like that are the big deal, so question here?
What about rent control? I have a building that I wanted to do short-term rental, and I was just worried that you get the wrong person in there that knows the laws. They're not legal.
License, not lease. Stay away from West Hollywood. West Hollywood, just don't go. Just don't do that.
Why don't you talk about that?
That license, not lease, is as neat a distinction. I'm getting a red dot.
Red is.
can take the mic.
Thanks. I don't know that it's that it solves every problem, because once somebody is in, it doesn't matter if they're a licensee or a tenant. If they don't want to leave, you have to treat them like a tenant, and you have to evict them like a tenant.
But it also depends on how long they've been there. Because we kept, again, there are a number of things that we do to make sure, for example, 27, 28 days or less, it's a really good trigger to make sure that the reservation doesn't go beyond, or that one single reservation doesn't go beyond. So long as we've been able to stay under that, innkeeper laws and apply, we've been able to.
That is great. I would be cautious.
But I would still stay away.
And I think that any additional layer of regulation makes things more difficult and risky. So if you're adding on rent control on top of normal landlord-tenant or property ownership rules, you add that to it, I think that is an extra challenge that I probably wouldn't touch.
But if you own the lease, right, the lease comes in civil tax.
We've had them removed, again, Boston, LA. LA is where, well, LA and it did supposed to be spots. Details! But LA and North County, they entered the two places that I've operated where this has happened is LA and North County Hospital. And there was no. Again, it hasn't been a big, if you're talking about houses, it's been a bigger issue in a house than it is in a apartment.
Mark and Yuko, you guys have dealt with like the HOA things quite a bit out in Hawaii, right? Can you guys tell us what experience you guys have had with that?
All right. Yeah, over there it's a little bit different. I hate to keep saying that, but we've got HOAs. We buy specifically in buildings that allow it. We wouldn't, and it's not that I'm against it doing it. We're just risk averse. We don't like doing that kind of stuff. So we specifically went to Hawaii for that. Yeah, it's more expensive, it's more pain, but we buy specifically in buildings that allow it, and we buy in specific areas that allow it. So in Waikiki proper, it's allowed as long as it's allowed in the building. Is the state of Hawaii and the realtors in Hawaii constantly battling us to try to get all that stuff reversed? Yeah, we deal with the same crap everybody else does. But we're safer than most people are because we bought where we bought. I know, yeah, it could change. But specifically, I've heard about people in Palm Springs that have had issues with people that wouldn't leave, and I don't disagree with what you say at all, but it still does exist that it's impossible to get people out. Having done a couple of hundred evictions, I worked for the banks before we started investing. And when someone's in and they don't want to leave, that's it. But that same thing could be happening if someone's staying for a week or a month. But specifically the HOAs, though, we always see rules changing slightly at our HOAs, but nothing that's affected us so far too much. But it's a constant battle. We've got groups over there, and we do lobbying to keep everybody else from trying to take our business away from us. But that's a city where it's allowed, so it must be more interesting doing it in cities where people really don't want you around. So
let me say another preventative measure is honestly how you accept payment. Understand that it is someone that's going to stay with us multiple months, they're paying 100% of that up front, especially if they're a brand new customer. So let's just do the math. Let's just say it's $150 a night for 3 months in a row. That's a really big check, and they're writing it all up front. The person who typically has the intention and the need to squat or do something of that nature, I'm just going to make an assumption and say that they probably don't have that kind of money up front. Does that make sense? Now, can I get my pricing wrong and price it too low and attract that wrong person? Yeah, we use pricing as a deterrent. Trust me. There are times where, yeah, I can still make money at $60 a night, but it ain't worth the person who wants to pay $60 a night. So we just don't do it, right? Because that's just sense from having hundreds of units and screening people and going, I ain't going there, right? Now, so understand that is also, there are many ways to not be in that situation. And I'm almost willing to bet the stories that you're hearing, that you've heard of, they're not following some of the basic safety procedures that we're using, that we train people to use to avoid them. That's really what it comes down to.
And you know what's interesting is the way to get set up correctly with the right video, the right noise aware, all of these types of things can extremely benefit you to stop these types of problems from existing in the first place. In addition, 3-day minimum stays in houses and stuff like that. You guys maybe do a little differently depending on the type of asset and things like that. But anything you can do to deter those types of parties or issues that come up, or or problems from the HOA or neighbors, is all kind of can be mitigated substantially through technology and using these types of tools, which is ridiculously valuable. I mean, you have big security deposits with big fines for throwing parties in the first place and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's issues like that come with it as well. And so, if you have a 3-night minimum stay with a $500 plus security deposit, they're kind of don't want to get kicked out the first night. You know what I mean? So,
another thing that we do that is really old-fashioned, but it works, is we actually have someone meet and greet every client. I know that's logistically a nightmare. It is for us. But then it's one thing emailing, she does all the emailing to our clients. She actually does a lot of that work herself. She doesn't farm it out to our staff. But Mark, our on-island guy, meets every single guest, and he is a pretty good judge of character. And he pretty much gets on a horn with them and says, I think we may have a problem here. I'm going to have to stop by and check on them a couple of times while they're there. So that is one thing that you can do that will really alleviate a lot of problems. We've had, in all the rentals we've done, we've had very few problems. We've had people leave the place messy. We've never had a big party, not once. And so, yeah, I would love to do the monitoring, but that would be great. And if we buy more units, that will be what we'll have to do.
So in Hawaii, unfortunately, the building, sometimes security requires somebody to escort in the new guest. So there's a key fob that needs to be, you have to have a key fob to even coming into the entrance. So we can't even put the lockbox. Almost all buildings, except one, it doesn't even allow us to put the lockbox, like old-fashioned. So we can't even do fancy all lock and everything else. So that's why we were going to do it from lockbox to begin with, but then a lot of condos start doing it because a lot of people doesn't want any stranger to just come in. Everybody knows that it's a tourist, but they don't want that. So a lot of HOA decided, or the manager told the owner to no more lockbox. So there's no more automatic coming in. So somebody has to greet it. So but we are doing it, and that's why probably maybe our unit has less problem than others. Because kind of if you need somebody that's taking care of this unit and you don't want to kind of mess up, because if some cable TV doesn't work, you're going to have to call that person, and that person has to come. So for us in Hawaii, those buildings and condos doesn't really work for the high-tech people or high-tech gadget. So that would be nice, much easier. But yeah, but that's what we've been doing, and then I think we found it successful in a way.
I live in the high-tech world. That's just where I go because I have a phone.
Is it a flip phone?
Yeah, no problem. What kind of keyboard you got on? Anyway, to her point, security is, I should preface this by saying I'm a military kid, so I grew up military, grew up overseas. Security is something that, was drilled into me. Don't take out the trash without your passport. I mean, dude, you just have security all the time. So it's something I'm always thinking about all the time. down to the point of what time of day you would accept a reservation. Believe me, there's a difference between a reservation at 6 p.m. versus 9 p.m. You don't want the 9 p.m. I promise. Same day reservations at 9 p.m., bad news. Promise you. And you just don't do those things. But what I was going to say to the ID, we're actually the next step, the next transition that we're implementing technology where not only do we have signatures electronically, which is awesome, but we have ID, photo IDs being submitted electronically as well, not only before the reservation, but also on the site, so that as part of the check-in process. So imagine, here's the situation. They arrive, they can only unlock the door with the phone number that we've specified. We got them on camera unlocking the door. It's two-way, by the way, so I can talk to them at the same time. It's really fun. Scaring people at that moment. They're like, oh my God, where'd that voice come from? And then, so I know that they unlock the door. See how many people showed up with it. And actually, the issue isn't people, it's the animals they bring with them. Ask me later. So that's really the bigger issue. And so, but we know that. And then we have noise monitoring services. So I know when the noise wave changes, it's also timestamped. Hey, it matches when the door was unlocked, and they unlocked using the proper code. And I saw them go in. I know exactly who's there. And then they go through the check-in process where on our tablet, they're taking a picture of their photo ID, submitting that to us so that we know, again, that who made the reservation is actually the same person. There are many ways to get to not have to deal with what you've seen on the news. You just don't hear about it because I don't have CNN type money to tell you that, hey, there's ways to make it work. And that's really what it comes down to. And this idea is very viral. It's not going anywhere. I'm very excited about it.
So, Michelle, I mean, clearly cities have a different point of view on this. So what's the argument that cities are making on short-term rentals and why these are bad for their communities?
So cities are still working out how they feel about short-term rentals.
I got a lot of money to send them great.
The knee-jerk reaction to short-term rentals in areas like the South Bay that have high property values and affluent and well-educated population was to just flat out outright ban them because they felt like we were just encouraging a bunch of partiers to come in to these quiet residential areas and that they were going to trash the properties and bring down everybody else's property values. Cities are now realizing that maybe they went too far, that there is some value to short-term rentals. They bring in money. If they can tax the people that are staying there, they're bringing in, tourism revenue. I know I personally have taken vacations staying at Airbnb properties that we wouldn't have been able to take if we were staying at traditional hotels. So now cities are deciding how far to regulate them. I know Hermosa is now allowing, there's like a pilot program where you can stay in commercial areas because that makes sense.
Because there's a number of homes that are zoned commercial, but they're single-family homes, and they're testing into those homes, right?
In Palm Springs, you have to register. You have a limit on the number of adults that you can have stay on the property based on the number of beds that you have. So I think cities are starting to explore options that they can make money on this thing that isn't going away. My advice to a potential investor in a short-term rental is that whatever the city regulation is when you're looking at buying it, whether it's a little regulation, no regulation, or a lot, assume that it's going to change at least once in the next couple of years, if not twice, and that if you value this as an investment, that you need to get involved in the lobbying effort on the city and with your neighbors to educate everybody about the benefits of it, because the neighbors are who will be complaining to the city if you are running a party house and you do not want to be Exhibit A for why you shouldn't have a short-term rental in the city.
This also, just to underscore, was that what she just said is exactly why instead of buying right now, we switched to leasing, because it was a way of limiting the risk. Because if a city changed their mind, I just picked my furniture up and moved it. That's literally it. And that way I just keep moving on. So just keep that in mind.
Because you could always just turn around and rent it long-term until the lease is up that you signed, right? And then back out of the lease then.
What's interesting is that when I suspect that, I will pre-negotiate with the landlord. Should the city laws change, I want the ability to go out there and find you a long-term tenant so that you can move on and you hold us no, and that's been not a problem, not even one time.
Right.
I was just going to comment. I know that the general public sees these negative stories about short-term rentals in the media, and so that's the perception. But I think there's a misconception about who is actually using short-term rental service.
Raise your system.
So fast.
Raise your hand if you've done a short-term rental. You're all degenerate partiers, and cities should throw you out on. Never mind. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I just started my business in September. I have 2 units. My guests have been amazing, and there's a wide range from 20-year-olds to 70-year-olds, and they're here typically for my business. It's for work and for family. I had neuroscience PhD doctors as guests for the neuroscience convention.
Yeah.
They're not having these.
Yeah, it's fact versus fiction, right? So for sure. I mean, what types of people are coming out? Like, are you getting? Jay mentioned more things like you've got a lot of people coming internationally, different countries. Are you guys getting more typical families on vacation? Which are
family and couple honeymoon, all kinds of, because Hawaii is everybody's destination. It's all over the world. The majority of the clients are Canadian, Australian, New Zealand, Japanese, not Japanese, but Asian, Japanese, Chinese, and mainlander like us. So a lot of different, the convention is always there. So convention is there, or Honolulu Marathon, event, wedding, and just so many people come and goes. Yeah.
Our number one, by far, bar none, is business. Between LA and Orange County. So in our Orange County places, it's usually a startup or an international company that has an office also in Irvine. For example, we have a Mexican engineering company right now where they're literally sending engineers up to train the Irvine facility. So they come on Monday, leave on Friday. They're going to be doing that for the next 4 or 5 weeks. We've done the same thing with restaurants. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Snooze, the restaurant. It's a great breakfast place. Their managers came to train. They opened a new location in Tustin. So the managers need to cycle through. They need a place to stay. So business CEOs, CFOs, we've helped people, CFOs who are doing mergers and acquisitions, which are not a weekend project. So that takes time. And then number two, by probably our best customer ever is medical. We have a lot of high-level clinicians and doctors in Orange County and LA. So when those doctors say, "Hey, you got to come to me and pay me my fee," that same person almost never travels by themselves ever. And in our LA situation, plastic surgery seems to be very popular. It looks like people don't want to be seen by their friends, so they need a place to hang out while they recover. So they come and hang out with us for a little bit, which I always find that interesting. And then the studios, obviously. So like right now, as we go through pilot season, I love pilot season because people come from the UK all over the world. Hey, my little Johnny's got a shot at a commercial and we're staying 3 weeks. Come on in. Because that's what they're there for. And again, it makes a more comfortable environment. And if you've ever done the math, you want to talk about value, do the math of what you pay per night, per square foot at a hotel versus what we give you per square foot at a hotel. And suddenly, you don't throw up in your mouth. You just, I'm telling you, it's insane.
Just on that?
Yeah, I love your examples. And I think that you're absolutely right that everybody needs to be educated about the types of people that are using Airbnbs and doing short-term rentals. I think for people that are just starting out in investing and only have 1 or 2 units to take care of, a little personal effort with your neighbors goes a long way. If you were to introduce yourself to your neighbors, let them know that you are the one responsible give them your phone number, just chat with them about some of the people that you've had, bring them a bottle of wine. They're going to love you, and you will then have like an extra set of eyes on your property. They might even find you tenants.
Or be your tenants.
Well, that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
When we worked in single-family housing neighborhoods, we hired the neighbor. Say, hey, because you know what? Probably the biggest, most painful thing about operating a single-family house is the trash cans. Making sure they go out on time and come back on time. So they don't sit on the curb. It's a real pain. But if you're a neighbor and you live right across the street, it's really easy for me to say, hey, would you like to earn some extra money? All I need you to do is to take the trash cans in and out and give me a call if something crazy is going on. And they've championed for us exact over and over and over again. Again, it doesn't have to be an adversarial relationship, which is 100% right. Anytime we've had a situation go less than positive, it's always the neighbor. It's not the city, it's not the apartment company, it's the neighbor.
A question here, and then we'll come back. We'll go over here.
So I have two questions. I'm going against the HOA.
You're going against the what? You're going against the HOA.
And they're trying to eliminate the short term. So the first question, what are the 3 points not to present to them to persuade them?
Do they allow rentals now?
Correct.
Just ask them how much oversight they have over the person who is currently screening the long-term tenant. They have no oversight. I'm trying to understand what's the difference. They don't know what that person who owns that condo did to screen the person they just put in there for a 1-year contract. They have no clue. No clue and no control. And they're getting no money for it.
So that's how it's solved. Is there 2 more?
There's a lot more. There's a lot more.
It's a really...
Okay, the second question.
Yeah.
What text question? The CCNR for the city ordinance?
The city ordinance. If there's a conflict, they both govern. But if one of them says one thing, if the city doesn't allow something, but the CCNRs allow it, the city rules. If the city allows it and the CCNRs don't, the CCNRs control. I know, I get you that way.
So,
We got one.
what do you pay? Got a question back here. Go ahead. What do you pay the neighbors?
Go ahead.
What do you pay the neighbors to do the trash cans?
We were paying them $15 per guest. So since we said, so every time we had a guest come, it was $15. In this particular case, we went the extra mile and said, hey, we'd like you to greet them, show them around the house, and just make sure the trash cans go back and forth. That was like her job. And so we just sent her the schedule with people who were coming, who they are, how many people. So she made sure they parked in the right spot, operate the garage door, and make sure the trash cans go back and forth, and that they had a nice welcome into the neighborhood, etc. And that they knew she was across the street. If they needed assistance, so it was $15 per guest.
I would just be
per reservation.
I would just be careful if you ever have to fire them. That could be an issue.
What's that?
If you ever have to fire them, that may be an issue on the line.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
She was actually a property manager at one point in time.
yeah, that's it. This
There you go.
case,
There you go. That works. So, question in the back, and then we'll come in the back.
I just think it's very interesting to hear the people you have to say. I have 3 in Scottsdale, Arizona. And
Arizona's awesome.
Well, it is, but it's also, Scottsdale is known for bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, and guys' weekends. I'd say 90% of the people that stay at my place do the bachelor parties or bachelorette parties.
Are you doing any sort of age-based screening?
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, if you're going to get your rental rates where you want, you got to be a little bit more lenient. So my point is...
No, you don't.
Well,
it's a marketing issue.
No, I don't want it at all. That's just the way it is.
Let me ask you a different question. How many platforms are you on right now?
4.
Which 4?
I'm on TripAdvisor, I'm on VRBO, I'm on Airbnb, and I'm on local Scottsdale one.
Okay, got it. Switch that to Airbnb and Booking.com, your problem goes away.
Okay. Yeah, we have a bunch of friends that do it. We all kind of like rotate houses, whoever's place is not rented, whatnot.
Yeah, totally understood.
It's very rare. You'll get families every now and then, but just the events that happen in the town alone, that's what brings it. And I understand.
Dude, I'm in LA.
It's interesting to hear because that's pretty much everyone that inquires.
And how big are the houses?
One's a 2-bedroom condo, one's a 3-bedroom house, and one's a 6-bedroom house.
Yeah, okay, so that's the second issue is the size of the place that you're renting.
Right.
So I would look into a way because you can make a ton of money on houses if you look at the floor plans and find multiple ways to break that 6-bedroom house into 1 2-bedroom and 4 1-bedrooms that you can rent separately. It does require more management, it'll make you more money, but that problem will go away.
Question over here.
So I heard you talk about a lot of people that you might not typically think of. So I always picture Airbnb, you're right next to the water, right? Sure. And you talk about how you source units and houses in areas that people might not think about for short-term rentals, like you said, studios, next to the airport. Like, how are you sourcing deals? And if you see something, how do you say, I know that's a good rental, I know that's a good area. Like, how do you underwrite your deals?
Got it. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you how to do it, so I want you to write it down. Seriously, it's one question. Okay. You ready? Who are you looking to serve? That is the question you must answer. For example, these two ladies right here, please stand for a moment, Shannon and Pat right here. They are in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Who has ever said, I want to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma? Anybody? Okay. But, no, you're not. No. But, in the middle of Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I know nothing about, I'm like, why would anyone ever go there? And there's probably 2 planes to get there, so it's not exactly easy. They're still doing it successfully because they know who they want to serve. Apparently, in Tulsa, cattle ranching and horses, and she literally houses blacksmiths, people who do horseshoeing, and trains horses because they have a reining competition. I've never heard of this stuff. But by staying focused on who she wants to serve, that's the key. I've seen it done where literally people have a campfire in the middle, covered wagons in a circle. There are people looking for the experience of a covered wagon, my friend. And going, hey, you can rent this covered wagon for $80 a night. If you want to stay next to your friend, there's your $75. Seriously, it's about the person looking for an experience. Don't think about it real estate specific. That has been the challenge I've had with people who have real estate backgrounds. They go, because, the first rule of real estate is location, location, location. Well, what I'm really saying now is think about the person who you're looking to serve. I tend to focus on people who like the urban experience or the business traveler because I'm a city mouse. Period. That's just the way I was raised. All right? I don't like the outdoor stuff. It's not my thing. But there are some people who prefer the outdoor stuff so much so they'll take a tent in the middle of the desert, call it glamping, and suddenly pay $150 a night. So the answer to your question is who do you want to serve? If I'm going to serve business travelers, it's not so much near the airport as much as it is near where they're going to be spending most of the time. That's why Irvine is really, really great, or Costa Mesa is really, really great because it's adjacent to Irvine, a very big business center. That's why being near studios are great, if I'm looking for that. That's why being near hospitals are great, or high-level clinicians, because that's who I'm looking to serve. If you don't feel like you can serve a person who's going through pancreatic cancer, please don't be near a hospital because you won't have the proper compassion for them when they're actually coming. Does that make sense? But if you want to serve someone who wants to go, swamping in the Everglades, then do that and be near that person. So it's about the experience you want to create for the person you want to serve. Answer that question, you got it.
Mark, can you go? When you guys do this, when you guys are serving you guys already have your kind of base of people being in Hawaii. It's obviously, a vacation destination for most people. Obviously, they probably have the same, hospital stay type people and things like that, and business travelers from Japan. But how do you guys source your deals when you're looking for properties and things like that? How are you, is it the same way you find a fix and flip property here, or what are you guys doing when you're trying to look for the right property?
Well, we use people wherever we're at. So, like here in LA, we've got equitably, we use people so that it's good for them and good for us. We network with a lot of people, so we flip a lot in LA, and so we have a lot of people looking for us. Hawaii is the same thing. We just have people looking. And
People being agents or wholesalers or
Asians, yes, not Asians. Those two. It could be anybody. It could be anybody. Yeah, agents are a great source, obviously. Yeah. I think we've gotten 2 units in Hawaii from the manager of the building. To do something. Our housekeeper turned us on to one. So I talk to everybody. I mean, I'm not too talkative tonight, but generally I talk like a maniac. But
awesome. Can you get her the mic? Can you stand?
no.
I'm keeping the mic now.
No. It doesn't work.
Well, so he's very talkative. So when we get in the elevator on the way Hawaii condo, and people are coming in the beach balls and everything. So, hey, where you guys come from? He always talks to everybody that he meets, or in the same space for a few seconds. The elevator doesn't, less a minute. So he has his spiel. So he always we have a little business card that all our listing number is there that you can look up. So, you're from Canada. So we have so many Canadians coming to our unit. Do you own a unit here? So he's a really conversation starter. I sometimes, oh my God, Mark is again talking. But then now we get a lot of, do you remember me? I met you in the elevator. I'm like, oh my gosh, we get the client from this way. So he talks to everybody for the tenant and everything, because Hawaii, I would say 90% of people are flying in, flying out. So not a lot of local people. Sometimes people are living in Low Shore, but there's an event in Waikiki, so they're looking for a place to stay. The majority of them are looking forward to come to Hawaii. So it's a fun place to be. And we are giving those cards away, and so Mark is a pretty good marketer.
So Mark, I'm not going to give you any help for that one, because I do the same thing. My wife gets mad at me because she hears me. I overhear someone saying real estate at the airport, and I have to go talk to them. So it's just part of life.
A little bit different than Irvine or LA,
right?
Because entire buildings are on vacation. So
right.
Yeah.
But in answer to the question, though, is where do we get our deals? That's the big question, right? Everybody wants to know where the deals are. I talk to everybody I meet. I talk to people at the grocery store. I talk to people in the bathroom. I talk to people that's what I do. I talk to people everywhere. That's how I source things. It's not, I don't just talk to one person or count on one person. We get deals from all kinds of places. So it's not just for vacation rentals, but any kind of deal or money.
And I think one of the biggest challenges with finding deals right now, especially with the city regulations, is finding them in the right cities that do this. Michelle, have you dealt with fighting the cities in any ways with clients, or people getting fined or issues with the cities?
We haven't had to yet. I know, going back to the neighbors, Redondo polices their ban based on neighbor complaints. So be nice to your neighbors. We haven't really had to fight the city. I know Hermosa had to fight a pretty big lawsuit against one of their complaints that they had brought against a homeowner, and the city got beat pretty badly, actually. I don't think that a fight against the city will knock out a regulation entirely, but I think working with the city to, again, sort of fine-tune their regulations to add more flexibility for property owners is probably what's going to be happening next.
Have you been dealing with the city issues at all?
Yes. But I also want to say, I am pro more regulation. Let me tell you why. Because the barrier is too low. That's my frustration. And when we go out there and do the work that we do, and we're compared to someone who snaps some cell phones and put a picnic table in the kitchen, you think I'm joking, I'm not. That irritates me, because there's a certain level of service that we choose to provide, and yet we're being just lumped in the same. I want some of the ordinances that I've read, it's such simple stuff, like you must have a fire extinguisher. I'm like, dude, I was gonna have that anyway. Yeah. Like, that's not really that bad of a thing. I want it there because it'll thin the herd and only the professionals will survive. What you're experiencing right now is a ton of hobbyists who got an opportunity, and I'm not knocking anybody's hustle, it's great, but I'm saying it's time to professionalize. And once that as that begins to happen and mature, you're going to see this change continue to evolve. Because like I said, the idea isn't going nowhere. You can cross your arms and hate it, or you can help us and we'll work together with you. I don't mind paying the tax. Great, it's not my tax anyway. It's technically a tax on the guest that I just pass on, so I don't care. The point is, there's lots of reasons to want it to be there because, you know what? I need help. When suddenly we can have medical dispensaries that are right around the corner, I don't want that stuff in my short-term rental. But people come for that stuff, and I need help too, right? And we can work together to make it all better for everybody. So the regulations are there. I want the right ones.
And I think this is a very big topic. Well, I'll get your guys' questions, but on the city stuff, I've been dealing with it. And the city of Anaheim is about to lose a big case right now, and it costs $600,000 or more in legal fees to deal with that from some of the short-term rental owners, and that's a big deal. And what it really comes down to is their specific code and the city council members and their stance on this stuff. And so when you read the code, for example, in some of the cities that I'm actually dealing with, they are making leaps to try to say that they are hotels, when in reality there's been multiple Supreme Court cases that have specifically said that there is that this is a residential activity because the people that are staying there are eating, bathing, sleeping at that residence, and that's a residential activity, and there's not mass quantities of people going to one location like a hotel does over and over again. And so in their code, you have to basically get an attorney to read that code to tell you what that specifically says to see if it's allowable. Now, that doesn't mean that the city is going to agree with you just because their code is wrong. So they're finding people off of neighbor complaints without any proof and making you go in and fight the ticket to be able to do that. And so if you want to fight the ticket in something like that, if you're subleasing, you might have to get your landlord involved, and you don't want to do that. And so you may just be stuck paying it. Plus, if you go fight that city, you're talking about a lot of legal fees involved there unless you go to small claims court or something along those lines. So the specific city regulations are really important, and you get people coming in telling the politicians and telling the different city council members that, there's drug addicts and hookers and all kinds of stuff at my property or at my neighbor's house, and they're completely just frivolous type stuff most of the time. But there's also the person in there that has a really bad short-term rental owner next to them that has been partying, and they call over and over and over again and get them fined, and they won't stop, and they're tired of it. But in reality, they could have probably handled it in a totally different way. But you get a lot of people going to the cities complaining about these items, and then they're listening to those versus the reality of what's actually happening in the true statistics. And so fighting those cities is a big, hard battle in certain cases.
Well, and with that, this is where now that technology that I was talking about for security becomes my friend. Because guess what I can show? I can show exactly what the noise print was from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. on that specific day. I can tell you how many people were in there. And if I really want to, there is technology that will tell me how many physical cell phones were emanating from that address at that time, at the same time. And I can show you, it wasn't me, homeboy. It was somebody else. Because there is an unfair bias that is currently in place that we're the ones causing the noise. I can prove that it's not. There's a new one coming that I just can't wait, where it'll detect smoke, like as an actual cigarette smoke, as opposed to just when something's on fire. That is like the next step. That is like the last thing. We will have this whole thing on lockdown. It'll be great. Yeah.
What are you paying for all that tech per unit?
$3,000.
And are there any recurring, or is that all one time?
The 400 a year is about the recurring fees.
Per unit?
Yes.
Question. Yeah, you get scared on that, like scholars and financials.
No, you don't, but my friend will jump in.
Because I try to compare it to just long-term lease.
Yep.
And I'm having trouble understanding numbers.
Got it.
possibly because I'm very skeptical of occupancy levels.
Sure.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. Where are you getting your data from?
I'm not getting it. This is just me.
Okay, let's start with that. That's issue number one. Issue number two is that there is no good data. That's the second. That's the biggest issue, especially when you're out there as a real estate professional. You go, hey, what are the comps, right? If the comps are the comps, that's what it's worth. There's no good, reliable way to pull comps right now. That's the biggest challenge. So you really don't know how much any one location is going to earn unless you've already been in that area. That's the challenge. You don't know what your occupancy rate is going to be unless you've been in that area. I know there's a ton of sites that say they can tell you they're all wrong 100% of the time because it's a revenue management issue, and if that's a term you haven't heard, just look up later, but understand that hitting 85, 90, 92% higher occupancy is what you should be doing, and if you're not, you're doing it wrong, period. So with that being said, then you have to figure out what you need for a minimum, or what I call your cost, your minimum, and your base rates. Long story short, in the LA market, I tend to project somewhere in the neighborhood of averaging around 115 a night. Although 2017, they close to 165, it's pretty cool. And occupancy, I always want people to shoot on the low side, so my low side would be 85%. That is my low side. If you're not doing that, you're doing something wrong. Period.
And what about when it comes down to like 30-day or more rentals and that kind of case? Is there a difference in occupancy rate that you've seen from that?
So it's not a difference so much in occupancy as it is in lead time. So for example, if I'm going to operate a 1 or 2 bedroom right now, I could put a 1 or 2 bedroom, you're not going to like this, but I can put a 1 or 2 bedroom up right now and by the morning probably have somebody ready to stay there, all right? It's like literally actual paying customer. The bigger the location gets, the longer the lead time it is, and it only makes sense because it houses more people. Think about it. The last time you tried to get a group of your friends to go to the same movie at the same time, how long was that conversation? And that's just to the movies, let alone getting them on a plane to go somewhere, right? So if you can house 8 or 10 people, they're planning 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 plus weeks in advance. Like right now, the popular thing we're getting are wedding parties because it's about to be wedding season again, right? So as wedding season comes through, they're contacting, hey, can me and my bridesmaids stay here? Now, I personally don't like wedding parties, not because it's a wedding party, but because the ladies, you guys do your hair, and there's a lot of hair in my place, and it clogs up the sinks, and it's not even cool. I just don't like it. All right? So it becomes a plumbing issue. So that's I just don't want to deal with it. All right? But that's the truth. My point is, though, the larger the place, the more lead time you need. And if you got that, once you got that dialed in, then it's not an occupancy issue. So don't put up a 6-bedroom house right now, and then you're going to have it occupied next week. But know that once you start the cycle of getting it occupied, yeah, you should be able to keep it occupied.
Yeah, we actually have a place that houses, it sleeps 12. But we're getting bookings in July right now, you know, and we're getting almost completely booked in these areas, and that's because of the lead time. Because most of our clients are coming from California, coming from Canada, Utah, different places with large families, which is a different tenant base than a typical hotel tenant. So it's really interesting. So, question here, and then we'll be back here.
Actually, I just want to share 2 experiences. We're long-term buy and hold for the primary crop. And we had our best house in Tulsa, and we got renters in the fall, and they skipped on us in December.
Right.
So that's our best house long-term. And, it's for screening by our property manager. So we are but not without problems. And our short-term rental, we had the opposite. I got a call on Saturday night. I had 3 ladies staying in our home. They were here for some sort of cosmetics convention that was going on in Mary Kay, but something else. And they called me in a panic because they were scared of our neighbors, because the neighbor was acting up. So I had to call the police on the neighbors, not on my tenants, not on my guests, but on the neighbors. And I had, I'm sitting there watching, and I'm calling my other neighbor who I can attest, he's the one who rolls our trash cans out, and I tell every guest that comes in, Barry lives next door, his dog's name is this, he's a great guy, but that kind of leads into it as well. I think they sort of know, oh, there's somebody there who kind of knows what's going on. But I watched the police, escort my guests out because they were scared of my next door neighbor's tenants, long-term rental. Long-term, the guy is a slumlord. I actually had to have my landscaper mow half his yard because in Tulsa, your yard grows a foot in a week. You have a problem. It becomes hay very quickly.
So I'm sorry, Coach. We only got about 15 more minutes left, and we've got so many more things we want these guys to cover. So again, this is the networking, post-networking. Anyone who's looking for personal experiences, please check that out. Do you have a quick question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question regarding occupancy rates. Do you use a system like Airbnb? They can work face tests and
they're wrong.
Are they wrong?
You're like, okay, why is the data wrong, right? Okay, I know everyone's saying, how can you just say?
There's measuring rates using Airbnb, and I heard accounts that they could upload.
Right. So first of all, in order to get it right, let's just pretend you could. To get the daily rate right, you'd have to know, first of all, how many platforms that particular property is being advertised on. What if it's advertised on something other than just the Airbnb? What if it's on Booking.com and TripAdvisor and what was that? There was a local one he was talking about.
Yeah,
how can you measure that? Because if you only measure it as in it's occupied when Airbnb says it's occupied, that doesn't mean that person got 100% of their clients from that one source. And in fact, if you're all of you, you're smart business people. You don't rely on one source for all of your customers. Duh. So you can't measure it. That's number one. Number two, remember, the user base is mixed. There's the hobbyist who's like, you know what, I'm going to be gone next week. Let's try this Airbnb thing. I will go ahead and put it out there at any price. Yeah, they might be full, or they might not, but they're only doing it 8 days a month. There's 30. What happened to the other 22 days? So was that 100% occupancy? What was it? How do you measure? Do you get where I'm coming from? Versus the person who's actually doing this with the intent for profit. Meaning, this property, this is all it's for. I'm going to do all of these things to make sure it stays full. Trying to figure out who that is on each platform is not a science yet. It's really difficult to do. This is why the data is wrong, because what they're doing is they're just scraping the data en masse, and they're not getting it in directly from the platform. They're going, okay, we'll do a check right now at 8:53. If at 8:55 this unit is suddenly booked, then whatever the last advertised rate was, that must be what it booked at. Well, what if I send someone a special offer directly that was higher or lower than that advertised rate? They don't have access to that data. All of the data is wrong. All of it.
So, Mark and Yuko, let's talk a little bit about some operational things here. So, when you guys, you have guests come in, how do you turn a unit over? How do you get someone? First of all, how do you set it up, and then how do you turn it over quickly to handle the next guest that's coming through? Smart move.
That was awesome. So, you mean occupancy rate? I'm sorry.
No. How do we go from guest to guest?
Oh, okay. So, our checkout time is 10 or 11. It's pretty loose, but by 11 I want everybody to be out, unless they did the late checkout. So which they have to request beforehand, and sometimes they have to pay extra to stay, until 6 o'clock or something like that, because the airplane doesn't leave until 7. So, but anyway, leave 11. And we usually have a check-in schedule and check-out and check-in schedule. So check-in schedule go to Mark, which is the greeter, and check-out schedule goes to the cleaner. So then she just come in after 11 o'clock to clean the room to have another guest the next day. Or sometimes back-to-back reservation. People leave 11, people coming in at 3. So these are the cleaner is managing her own schedule.
Is it just one cleaner, or do you have multiple cleaners that you?
We have just one cleaner takes care of our, no, actually 2 cleaners. We have 6 properties that she takes care of. She has few crews. So then one unit has totally different cleaner because a little bit farther.
How do you know if it's clean enough or if they did a good job? Is your Mark looking at it?
As an owner, I don't know. Hope it's clean. But Mark usually goes there like a half an hour before to turn on the AC. So then he gonna check that scope of work.
So what about how does the money work with that and things like that? Do you guys get paid all up front when they book or when they move in? How does that all work?
All of them has to pay 6 days prior to their arrival. Entire amount. 60 days. 60.
Yeah,
2
that
months.
makes more sense. I thought
Yeah,
you
not
said
6
six.
days. So, but it depends on when you made a reservation. So if it's people made a reservation 6 days prior to, like, a lot of times Hawaii trip is not like, oh, let's go Hawaii tomorrow. So you have to plan a trip. So then people put the deposit for about 25% of the entire amount. And about 60 days prior to their arrival, there's another invoice sent out, and they have to make a payment. Otherwise, I won't give them check instruction. So they will ask, hey, I don't know how to check it. Well, did you pay? Or, never happened before. Actually, people pays 6 days in prior. Or like sometimes last minute booking, like 2 weeks in before, some California want to go because we just not too far. So then they're gonna have to pay 100% at the time of reservation. So we don't have like 2-3 days that last minute reservation because of the situation. Everybody has to fly in.
And then how do you deal with the bookings online and communication with prospects and things like that? What platforms are you guys on?
So we only use VRBO HomeAway. Okay. So we get pretty good occupancy rate.
Okay.
90% occupied.
Okay. And then what about the communication? How do you guys communicate? Is it all through VRBO?
Yes, and then also all the customers who stayed with us, we kept their email address. We sent out the email every once a month. We called What's Up Hawaii. So what's going on with Hawaii? And in 2 months we have a discount on this unit, So then a lot of repeater coming from that email, then we will give them discount for if you stay more than a week, and we will give you $100 discount because we allow them to stay 4 nights minimum. So if it's 4 nights, just a $50 discount. So we give them that discount, or sometimes because the Mark can greet the people, not me, other Mark in Island Contact. So they will bring some wine or Honolulu Cookie Company's cookie with a pineapple box and some kind of aloha spirit in it. So we can greet, thank you for coming again, kind of thing. So
why VRBO and not Airbnb?
We tried Airbnb. We started Entire Vacation Rental about 4 years ago. And we tried both platforms because that was not a lot of other platform about 4 years ago. So Airbnb, I didn't like it because they kind of, I'm sure the system improved by now, but I didn't like the way they charging the customer. Oh, wait, why they are charging like $50 less than per night? What happened? So we don't get to answer for it.
Maybe you can teach us.
So
I will. But yeah, I agree with that.
And then also I couldn't find my own property when I tried to search. And where's my property? It doesn't come up. So who's gonna find it then? So then my property manager in Hawaii, I tried to find a property, I can't find it. How to get it? I don't know. So just why don't you just put the listing number? But a lot of people doesn't know the listing number. So, but VRBO, for some reason, maybe we're lucky, I'm not sure. But by the time we listed, we got so many inquiries just like that. We're like, okay. So then kind of we stick with it. And when I first purchased the one property, we put the both. And the second property, we bought it like 3 months later. And I didn't even put it into take my time to put it into Airbnb. Airbnb is free to put, versus VRBO, I didn't do the pay-per-click. I did like a subscription at that time. So we're gonna have to pay up front, but right now it's a little bit different system, but at that time it was subscription level. More you pay, you get higher exposure. Not now, but so we put everything on platinum, which is only like $1,200 a year. So yeah, we have a few properties, but then we get more bookings that way. So then we stay up, but still it is. Probably that one was the helping to book it from the beginning.
How do you guys collect? VRBO collects the hotel occupancy taxes as well, right?
Yeah, they collect, but they give it to us. We are doing it ourselves.
You have to go and give it to the government.
Yeah, every month.
Airbnb doesn't actually do that, right?
Well, it depends.
It depends on the states.
The location, like in LA, they do.
Okay.
So in LA, well, certain places they do it, certain places they don't. And that's actually another challenge, is because I've had students where they've collected the TOT, go down to the city, and they don't know how to receive it. So they're like, we don't know where to pay it. So it's really frustrating because we can have it, but we don't have there's no procedure in place to actually send it somewhere. So but that's a whole nother issue for another day.
How do you guys look, if you have your property on multiple platforms, it gets rented here, how do you check it out of all the other platforms that may be posted?
Technology is my friend.
So you can do that, set that up automatically?
Yeah, it's all done. Yeah, when you get it done right, you can have it all reduced. Like I'm literally looking at reservations that have happened while we've been here. We're checking.
There's an app that does it for you. Yeah.
All on your phone, and it's kind of
What app is that?
Well, there is not one. We use a tech stack of approximately 9 SaaS products in order to actually make it all work together. It's not one app. It's literally a system that makes sure that things are shut down, things are priced right, emails go out when they're supposed to, and contracts and photos come back like they should. It's not just, yo, look at this app and all your problems are solved. But that's what I really, in the seconds that I've got left, I want to underscore something. Understand, this entire business model that we've talked about, it ain't new. It's been around, specifically in the United States, since the Civil War period. There was a time where banks made sure that there was an extra domicile on the land, specifically to make sure the homeowner could make the payments. That was the whole thing. They wanted to make sure the homeowner had enough money to make the payments. So here, have another house so that you can rent it out. The only thing that has changed, and the reason we're all in this room right now, is because technology, which you guys are going to be talking about next month, technology came into play and took the barrier to entry through the floor. Because what was previous is that it was difficult for the customer to find a place to stay, and for you with the place to stay to find the customer. That was expensive, and now that expense has become the price of the cell phone, which you already have in your hand, and downloading a free app. When that happened, that's why we're in this room at this particular moment. The barrier of entry became a device you already had in your hand, and the platforms, have shouldered the expense. One of the most expensive things any business incurs is customer acquisition. And one of the reasons that Airbnb is by far the largest is because their customer acquisition fee to the operator is 3%. And for those of you who've been in business, if you've ever accepted credit cards, you also know that's 3%, or about 3%. They don't charge you an additional 3% to process that credit card. It's 3% total for a customer acquisition fee. And when I saw that, I'm like, I'm in. That's a free customer as far as I'm concerned. And then we do exactly what they're talking about. You build your database, you get off that platform, and run your business.
All right, so we've got time for about one more for each of you guys. Let's kind of end it with either some last-minute advice, either something that you've done or a client's done that's been a big mistake, or something that you recommend if you're just getting started that you should do in this space. Michelle, why don't you give us a tip or a pointer to look at?
I think if you're just getting started, my advice is to just be flexible, because things are fluid right now. They're changing, as we've heard in this room. So be prepared for things to sort of fluctuate over the next couple of years. My advice for you is what I mentioned earlier, and it's be nice to your neighbors, because they are the ones who are going to make or break your business.
You go.
I don't know, does everybody know where you wanted to do the short-term rentals, or you are still picking a place? Still thinking. So the reason why we pick Hawaii, we live here, number one, we like Hawaii, we would like to go. I thought maybe, if we buy some property, maybe we go to Hawaii more, which is true, we go there like every 2 months. So, but at the same time, for us, why is Hawaii is that almost all of the world knows what the Waikiki is, where the Waikiki is. So it's everybody's destination, and then traveling is the key for the island, and a lot of people comes in throughout the year. So with that being said, and Maui was one of the favorite places for us to go, but then Waikiki is by far the first time a Hawaii visitor, 90% of people go to Waikiki for some reason. Well, it's a beautiful place. So that's why demand is there. So that's why we picked the place. And also we are looking for appreciation properties. So that one was either California or Hawaii. And the Hawaii is more of the vacation destination than wanted to move to the LA kind of thing. So when you pick the location, probably you might want to see how much is the demand, what's out there, why people are gathering, and these are the very good indication of occupancy rate being high.
It's really funny that you say that you love traveling to Hawaii, and that was one of the positive benefits. I took Jay's course on short-term rentals and immediately went home and wrote down all the locations around the world that I want to own a short-term rental, because the dream with technology now is travel wherever you want, work wherever you want, and I'm like, if I could go rent them out the rest of the time and make them profitable and then go stay there whenever I want, how awesome is that? You can stay anywhere.
Or better yet, buy a bunch where you're at and trade with people. And
there you go. There you go.
Then you don't have to deal with that nasty management stuff.
That's definitely true.
Run your own timeshare business?
Yeah. You don't have to worry about communist countries taking your property from you and things like that. So absolutely. Jay, what about yourself?
When you go to Hawaii, you stay on one of your properties?
If they're available, if not, one of our places has guest suites, so we'll stay in one of those. So we can still be with our friends, but we can't stay in our own unit. But it's disappointing. But when someone's paying $7,500 a month to stay in your place, and they come down to the cocktail lounge and you see her, it's like, hey, how's it going?
Hey, I'll buy you a drink. You don't have to worry about it.
Actually, we made really good friends with some people from, where the hell were they from? Not Denmark. Norway. Yeah, they were our tenant. They stayed in our place, actually the place that we try to stay at all the time. They stayed for 3 months. Yeah, 3 months, full price, extended once, and they're going to come back again next year. So, and we only hope to have that place rented out half the year anyway, because we want to be there. So, anyway.
I'm going to say something that's been counterintuitive to the Cash Flow Diary brand for quite some time. You don't even need to raise capital for this, guys. I mean, you can, but you don't need it. This is the first business model I've seen in a long time where what's way more important is getting out there and being an operator, because the cash-on-cash return, the payback period, all of these things that you want to measure, it's literally life-changing. I mean, and in fact, I'm going to say, because again, I was originally going to purchase, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with purchasing. Purchasing will make you wealthy, especially this way. However, instead of purchasing, what I did is I started going for control, and I was able to expand the footprint way faster. Although there is regulation coming, it's not here. It's going to be easier to expand now than it will be later, period, right? So part of the plan is to expand so that I have enough cash flow, again, monthly cash flow coming in to have a down payment. So if you have $100,000 right now, what I would do is I go get 10 different short-term rentals going so that those 10 could produce you a new $100,000 every 10 months or so. Probably less with summer coming. But every 10 months or so, you could have that $100,000 over and over again, and you could keep buying houses that way. It's just a phenomenal thing.
We're talking about our 50 to 100% return on investment on these deals that you're doing at fast.
All right. I'm sorry. We have to get everyone out of here because we said 9 o'clock. It's 9:10. So, yeah. Guys, thank you so much. Let me get a big round of applause for that.